Carnales de Telehit, ¿cómo están? Ahora sí que estamos de manteles largos en este especial porque tenemos a una persona que, bueno, muchos de ustedes lo han estado siguiendo a través de los años y tenemos la oportunidad de platicar el día de hoy con Robert Smith de The Cure. Robert, first of all, thank you very much for the time of this interview.
That's all right.
So, this album, talking about the creating process of the album, what is the biggest difference between this album and the other one of The Cure?
The most obvious difference is the fact that we played this live in the studio, which sounds strange, but
Live?
yeah, well, I actually sang as we were playing, which normally I don't. Normally we record in layers and we develop the songs and then we change them and I chop them up and usually the process of making the record happens whilst it sounds weird. Whilst we're in the studio, we go in with a kind of an idea of what we want to do and then we work it out as we record. With this one, because we had Russ Robinson producing, he took care of all that before we went in the studio. We spent a month playing and playing and playing and playing. So when we went in the studio, we actually just spent each day, we set up and we recorded. So it's essentially, it's a live album.
And I mean, you've been in a lot of times in a record studio. What could it be like, one of the best memories that you have during the time that you were doing an album?
Well, I actually had more fun making this record than any other record I've made.
Why?
Because it was so intense all the time. I really loved it. Russ works as hard as I do, and he is as intense as I can be. He was enthusiastic and totally involved in the process. So it was really nice for me to have someone who was there all the time, because normally the band isn't there all the time. They do their bit and then they disappear. So most of the time I feel kind of quite lonely when I'm making albums. Which is a good thing, I suppose. When I'm singing, it helps me to. And
sometimes you need that loneliness to create better music.
Yeah, I mean there are thousands of times in the studio when I've thought this is so good. I mean, really, every time that you finish a song is a really great feeling. You know, every time you finish a mix of a song, it's like you've made something from nothing. It's like the reason why I still do it. That feeling.
Yeah. And talking about memories of yourself, you have two older brothers, right?
Oh, an older brother, one older brother.
One older brother.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing that you learned from him?
To love books. That's
really?
Yeah. When I was young, he used to read to me all the time.
What is your favorite book?
My favourite book of all time?
It's hard, I know.
It's very hard. I mean, I suppose just because a book that still holds a place in my heart is the Gorman Girls trilogy by Mervyn Peake, which is just a kind of like a fantasy set of fantasy stories, but only because it kind of reminds me of a certain time in my childhood. I've read far better books, you know. I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you my favourite book is. There is no such thing. I like too many different books.
And do you have any like younger brother or sister? Yeah?
I've got an older sister and I've got one younger sister.
And what is the hardest thing for you to be in the middle of your family?
I'm not really in the middle because my older brother and sister is 12 and 15 years older. Because my mum wasn't supposed to have any more children, and then suddenly I came along. So me and my little sister are we were always together, and my older brother and sister were together. So it's more like two teens rather than being in the middle.
Yeah. And talking about that time, did you like comics or superheroes at that time?
Yeah, and I still do. In fact, I spent all day yesterday reading comics.
What is like your favorite comic or your favorite superhero?
Deathlock, the Demolisher.
The Demolisher. Cool, that's great. And did you have at that time like any pets in your house?
Yeah, I grew up with. We always had pets in our house. I haven't got any now though.
Really?
We always used to have like cats and dogs and rabbits and hamsters and.
Like a zoo.
Yeah.
And at that time you also started.
And they always used to die, and like. Like they do.
And at that time you also started admiring great artists such as Jimi Hendrix. What is like the most important thing that you admire of him?
Well, when I was that's in the 60s, I was like I discovered him through my older brother. He used to play him, and I was kind of probably 7 years old when I first became aware of who Jimi Hendrix was. In that, like 1967, 1968. Yeah. He just represented. I suddenly realised that there was a big, colourful world out there. Because at that age, everything's to do with kind of just school and home. You don't really do very much at the age of like 7, 8, 9. You have no independence. You really have no power. I mean, you don't for a long time, you know, you can go through you're 18 or until that happens, but I began to dawn on me that this weird bloke played guitar and sang as a job, you know, and I thought it just stuck with me. And so all the way through school, I always used to think, people say, what do you want to be? And I'd say something like, I'll be a gardener, or in my head I think, I'll be Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, and well, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jimi Hendrix impersonator. Yeah.
And after you've been involved in music like for, what is like the biggest mistake that you think the music industry is still doing right now?
There's so many. I think the stupidest thing that they're doing actually is the amount that they're forcing. Just as an example, like the amount that they're forcing people to pay for downloads is too much. Like that they all just got together and forced Apple to increase the price of downloads on iTunes. When in fact they should be reducing it. It should become like 5 cents a song. Yeah. And all the money should go to the artist. I mean, they're kind of, they haven't really quite grasped. I mean, there's been this ongoing struggle for the last 5 years because the means of distribution, as in any industry, is the key. And the majors have been struggling to kind of contain and constrain how music's like distributed on the internet. And they've come up with such half-baked ideas, and none of them have really worked. And the fact that they're, I mean, if you buy it now, at the moment, the way that current rates are, if you buy our album on iTunes, track by track, you'll actually end up paying almost as much as if you went and bought the CD. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. So that's just one very obvious big mistake that they're making, because and as an artist it hurts because they're forcing people to download music illegally still, because no one's going to pay like, you know, 50 cents for a song. I mean, why should you? It exists as digital information. It's like, it doesn't cost anyone anything, you know. It's like, so anyway, that's one thing. The other mistake is that, which hurts a lot of younger artists, it doesn't really impact on us as much, is the ludicrous amount of money that they spend on things like Pop Idol and all that sort of shit. Like all the money that they generate from other bands goes into these ridiculous competitions to find one band that will sell like 1 million albums for like 1 month, and then no one hears about it, you know. And it's this kind of constant, everything's speeded up to the point where everything has to happen now, everything has to sell now, and there's almost like a disregard for like cultivating artists who will, like, you know, make music in the future. So.
And in a lot of the songs of The Cure, you talk in a certain way about love. What is like your own definition about love?
I suppose for me it's the inability to kind of comprehend a life without the person that I love. I couldn't imagine it. I think, I mean, it's that sense that you would honestly feel like you would die if that person wasn't there.
And of course, one of the most important person in your life about that is Mary, your wife. What do you think that is the best of her?
That she puts up with me. It's true.
Estás viendo la cobertura especial de la visita de The Cure a México. Solo en Telehit.